welcome to ICICIdirect. Joining us now is Vineet Agarwal, President, ASSOCHAM. Vineet, thanks for joining us. You've probably had a very busy 48 hours, but quick take on the budget from an industry point of view. How do you feel about the budget? It's a bold, new age, pro-growth budget, pushing India Inc. to take more risk and grow.
Absolutely. And I think this is one of the times when we have a lot of confidence coming out of the vaccination drive and the fact that the economy has been able to come up after going through such a big crisis. So the budget really enthused us in terms of its intent and direction. One of the most important aspects were the consistency in policies. I think there were no changes, whether reductions or all those other things did not happen, which gives a lot of confidence to investors, whether it's domestic or international, that they have a long-term view about the country. And that is very important considering the second point, which is investment into infrastructure. The budget is envisioning about 2.9% of its expenditure of GDP on capex related to infrastructure, which would mean we need long-term funds for that kind of investment. And that long-term funds can only come if there's a consistency in policy. So clearly, these are quite well and interlinked as well. The impact of infrastructure investment is going to be massive. It's 2 to 3 times in terms of the trickle-down effect. And certainly that is going to be a game changer in the next few years and, of course, decades.
Vineet, let's take this one piece at a time. While not much tinkering was done on the taxation, the government did announce, or rather kept corporate tax rates at the same level, but they did announce a concession rate of 15% that has been extended by 1 year for newly incorporated manufacturing units. How do you think this is going to help? Is it enough, you think, in order to push the manufacturing units to go out and expand?
Yes, it is a direction that it is prompting more investment, and that investment is not just coming from either new manufacturing units directly starting up, or even under the PLI scheme for that matter, or even startups for that matter. So it all covers under that whole umbrella of a new entity, which will get a lower tax rate. And it is very attractive. It is amongst the best tax rates in the world when you're starting up a new facility and you need that headroom for the next few years. So yes, it's an extremely good policy.
I think another thing that has been sort of vetted has been for the infra space again, where insurers will now be able to provide surety bonds. Now, this, of course, will reduce indirect costs for suppliers. Again, a big relief, right? Because this will substitute bank guarantee and liquidity will ease up then.
Yes, currently with large infrastructure projects or projects that require these kind of bank guarantees, etc., it's a huge drain on companies because it's a cost, it's a liquidity issue, and it's just also a lot of hassle to really get back the money, the bank guarantees later on. So this is I think it's part of the ease of doing business agenda. And clearly, this will go a long way in ensuring that companies who are coming in and investing into large projects can work with such surety bonds.
Vineet, do you think enough has been done to boost consumption? Again, it was a big ask in terms of a sector-wide push.
Yes, I think demand generation in some form or the other is very critical at this point, and that can be incentivized through some kind of tax breaks. Though nothing came about here, our expectation is that something does come with the GST Council, and rates are reduced there, which prompts consumption. Things like two-wheelers, for example, is at 28% and can easily come down, or just rationalize the whole tax structure a lot more, make it more simpler, so that the people who really need input credit are getting it, and people who cannot do that, cannot claim it, are able to use it as pay the GST as well as get the products, and demand drive is also there.
Vineet, were you disappointed that not much was done on asset monetization? I mean, no major announcements there, right?
Yes, so the National Monetization Plan, which is really in terms linked to some extent with divestment. Divestment means completely giving out that asset. NMP is essentially not giving it out entirely, not selling it, but literally leasing it for maybe 2, 3 decades and then getting it back. So there is a difference between the monetization and divestment, but yes, divestment has been not at par with the budgeted figures. And I think the government has taken a pragmatic view around it for the next financial year for it to be at a moderated 65,000 crores. And that perhaps is a lot more achievable. And I do believe, as the Honorable Prime Minister has said, that the government has no business to be in business. And hence, the intent is there. It's just not come down to the action entirely.
And I think that's what the main sort of focus will be, right? Moving on from the intent, its execution. Uh, Also, do you think enough has been done in order to bring down the cost of capital to the industry and also resolve supply side constraints that industry at whole is going through? You know, be it cost related, be it supply related, there are worries. So while the intent, like we discussed, is there, reality on the ground is still very different. Still says a very different story.
True, the lot of the cost increases have been quite high, and they have essentially been linked to global issues, whether it is the cost of fuel, that is crude prices, or even for metals across the world, and even shipping rates. As we know, freight rates are also quite escalated right now. And unfortunately, the government does not have a control in a free market economy like ours. We cannot really impose controls on many things, and we should not. Otherwise, that really defeats the whole purpose of free markets. However, inflation is quite high, and that is having a direct impact on consumer pricing. So there is something that perhaps not necessarily in the budget, but perhaps the RBI can do over time to bring that down. But on the supply side, I think the disruptions have been quite a lot. We've seen this start stop because of the pandemic, with the lockdown, the first wave and the second wave, and that creates a bit of a, what we call in supply chains, a bullwhip effect, where there's a collection of either inventory, or sometimes there's a shortage of inventory. So this is typical of a supply chain that has gotten disrupted. And I'm pretty sure that even with the next few waves, if there are any, God forbid, that we should be able to manage these disruptions far better.
Vineet, well, the government has chosen to focus on growth, pretty much largely ignored inflation, putting the ball back in the RBI's court. Credit policy is due in a few days. While the equity markets welcomed the budget, bond markets are saying a very different story. I mean, yields are clearly around the 7% mark. Intervention, of course, could be anticipated. But largely speaking, what are you expecting in terms of real rates, RBI's actions, given that we are working with the 3 to 5 hikes by the Fed over the rest of the year?
I think the RBI will definitely consider some kind of hikes in the next possibly year in a graded manner, because right now at some point we are seeing that liquidity is increasing quite rapidly in the economy, and at that point that needs to go away. And so interest rate hikes have to perhaps happen at the appropriate time, but also not at a time that squeezes investment. So it's a balance is very important. The bond markets have reacted as it would if the expectation of increased borrowing from the government, and with the deficit the planned deficit being at 6.4% for next financial year, I think this was sort of expected, I guess.
All right, thanks, Vineet. Great talking to you today. I guess we've taken up quite a bit of your time, but that was a great consolidation of what India Inc. and you make of budget 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Samina.
Investments in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all related documents carefully before investing.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to never miss an update from ICICI Direct.